Administration has sort of changed strategy lately. It's engaging much more right now, isn't it, Zane?
Yeah, early on the Bush administration was reluctant to engage countries directly like Iran, like North Korea, but they have been driven to reverse that policy, and they are engaging simply because of the realities on the ground.
Zane Verjee reporting for us. Thank you, Zane. He's known as the Prince of Darkness, conservative and controversial. The political columnist Bob Novak has been covering Washington for half a century. His new book about those 50 years is called, what else? The Prince of Darkness. And the Prince, Bob Novak, is here in the Situation Room. Congratulations, Bob, on writing this book.
Thank you very much, Wolf. Thanks for having me back. Nice to be back at CNN.
It's good to have you back here. And let's talk a little bit about some of your thoughts in the limited amount of time we have. You were really opposed to this war in Iraq from the very start, and that put you on the outs as far as some of those inside the Bush administration,
including George W. Bush. I tell in the book how he had me in with a bunch of other conservative journalists just before his 2003 State of the Union. He said he hadn't made up his mind whether to go to war. I knew he had made up his mind. I thought it was a mistake, and I wrote it. And somehow, Wolf, I haven't been invited back.
Well, why did you know that this was a mistake and they thought it was a great idea?
Well, just reading, I didn't have my own intelligence agency, but just talking to the inspectors and people who had been on the spot, I was sure, I was positive he didn't have any weapons of mass destruction. But I also knew from my reporting that these were people who were very difficult, and it'd be very difficult to govern that country without a dictator like Saddam Hussein.
Your subtitle is 50 Years Reporting in Washington. You've covered a lot of presidents. You covered Nixon, for example. In the book, you say he was a poor president, a bad man who inflicted grave damage on his party and his country. Give us your report card, your ranking of the current president, President Bush.
I think he's mediocre. I think he's very disappointing. I don't think he's a bad man as Nixon is. I think he means well. He made a terrible mistake on Iraq, but I thought he was the first conservative Bush. I thought he was a real Texas conservative. Turns out he's like his grandfather, who I covered, a Connecticut liberal, and what he is, he put in all these spending programs. So I think he's been a failure as a president because he hasn't done a thing I think every great president has to do, and that's lead his party.
Here's another line from page 7, Karl Rove. Karl Rove and I had grown close since he began plotting Bush's path to the White House as early as 1995. In 4 decades of talking to presidential aides, I never had enjoyed such a good source inside the White House. Even though the president didn't like your thoughts on Iraq, did he stay a good source, Karl Rove, to you?
He did until the Valerie plane case, when it was developed, and of course he revealed it that he had been. I had regarded him as one of my confirming sources, and because of the legal troubles, he was afraid he was going to be indicted. He cut off all relations with me. We're talking again. It's not like it used to be, though.
It's not like the old days. Talk a little bit about your sense of where this country is moving right now, looking ahead to the presidential election of next year. Do you think, for example, Hillary Clinton's got this Democratic nomination pretty much sewn up?
I don't believe it's sewn up. I think she's way ahead, but anybody who regards the polls now as decisive is not very realistic. I think Obama could overtake her. The question is, what kind of a general election candidate is she? Because all the factors are running in the favor of the Democrats. Republicans should lose this election, but there's something. She's not a very likable woman. She's trying her hard to be likable, and I wonder whether she can win the general election.
Because Newt Gingrich implied that the Republican field right now, in his words, were a bunch of pygmies, trained seals. He didn't say that directly, but he gave that analogy, and some suggesting that there's still an opening for him if he wants to jump in. What do you think?
Don't hold your breath on that one. I don't see any support, any desire for Newt Gingrich out there. I think that Mitt Romney if he can get over this religious prejudice again about him being a Mormon, could be a viable candidate. And of course, the mystery candidate is Fred Thompson. Is he?
Well, what do you think? Do you think he's the real deal? Because his supporters say he's the next Ronald Reagan.
Well, he's not.
He's a movie star.
Not even Ronald Reagan will be the next Ronald Reagan today because he's been so deified. But he is a movie star. I always say that he's done such a good job as District Attorney of New York.